I guess we're alive. I'm trying this out for the first time. It was actually shout out to Emily because I asked her how to stream because she's my streaming with wizard. Um, cool. Let me just post it to Twitter so we have more people. It's always so awkward. I work in tech for years and I'm always like, how does it work?
Yeah, I think we're all like that though. It's like the little personal pieces of tech, like how do you make things work together?
Yeah, that's true. Always tricky. Cool. Seems like we have some people tuning in. Shall we start with your intro?
My intro, okay. Yeah,
Who
okay.
are
So where
you,
do you want me to
Felix?
Whoa, yeah. So I guess I'm a marketer, a crypto marketer. If we're gonna sub niche it. Um, I'm the VP of business and revenue at Hype. So I'm in charge of kind of making us money, but getting the most out of our resources. But ultimately, I'm a marketer. So um, I'm in a position where I get to. People call me the bouncer at Hype. So often I'm the first person that people see. If somebody wants to work with the agency, they normally get funneled towards me. I would say Emily's probably top of the funnel at the moment, but we've got some other very active people on X now, including our founder, some of our account directors. But yeah, generally, if there is an interest in exploring an engagement, it's normally sent to me in some respect, and then I have a conversation, do discovery, talk about what their needs are, where they're trying to get to, which in this market is often in a TGE. Everybody's trying to get their
Exactly.
token out the door before we get to a bear market. Um, and but yeah, I mean, I guess so. I guess history for me. I've been with Hype now for coming up to 2.5 years. I joined in just after the bear market really hit. I'd kind of been on my own adventures for about 3 years in crypto. Had a small group that I managed with some friends. But yeah, fairly anonymously doing all sorts of shady stuff in DeFi. Really a wild ride. It was like super fun. And kind of before that, I mean, I'm a musician. Studied music at university. Um, which is also one of the reasons that I was so attracted um to crypto is because it's kind of very counterculture, right? It's like it's very against the grain.
Yeah.
It's like let's fuck the system, let's do finance differently, all that stuff. And I'm into like guitar music and doing things differently, and so I it kind of really lines up with me. I love the kind of stupidity in the space, a lot of the silliness. I think it's great. So that's one of the reasons that I kind of fell in love with it. And yeah, prior to my time in crypto, I was doing sales and marketing for a bunch of different organizations, and have also worked on a kind of product focused startup with a friend. So yeah, I guess that's short intro on me.
That sounds like an awesome background. And it's a cool transition from music to to Web3. I like how,
Yeah,
like so many industries are aligned, right? You can find so many intersections with something that is like polar opposite at the first side.
I guess like everybody's trying to find reasoning for why they are where they are. They want to think you want to kind of
Hmm.
believe that there's been some sort of thread of fate that's been pulling you to the point you're at now, and that this is where you're supposed to be. So,
Hmm.
and honestly, I do really kind of feel that. I mean, I love my job. I love the Hype team. I love the industry. So I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. So yeah, I guess if you're not in that at that point in your life, then keep hunting, and there's always more to discover. But yeah, I guess I found a way to resolve maybe some of my past. Um, I don't know, some of the things that I don't wouldn't say I have regrets, but some of the things that I used to think on poorly, and now I'm kind of like, oh, they've led me to this point. So yeah,
Mhm.
positive slant on it all.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because in my life, I've been doing completely different things. And to be honest, until the moment I jumped fully into Web3 professionally, I was thinking that I have such a weird career journey. And I remember that each and every interview, I was like almost apologizing why I was like jumping through different industries because I was in luxury fashion, I was in healthcare, I studied banking and finance. And people were like, what? How does this like coincide? Now, when I'm telling this in crypto, I'm saying that proudly, and people are like, "Oh wow, this is so cool! Like your background is from so many different places." Because I feel like in crypto, everything is applicable. It doesn't matter what you've been doing before. You kind of like you can fit in, right? You can find your niche.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that's one of the draws as well. Is like it's kind of the Wild West still. Been here for a while now, and it's still, we haven't figured everything out, and being able to shape the kind of one of the frontiers of tech. Like we've got a bit of AI in this space, we've got a lot of blockchain, we've got a lot of crypto, um, but being in a space where you have the ability, especially as I guess like going into incumbent industries like law or economics or politics, they're kind of, I guess you're going in with a sense that, hopefully you could do something cool, but a lot of the time, I don't think there's as much opportunity to really um, mold what happens with a specific industry unless you're really, one of the key top people in that particular industry. So I think in crypto, there's still a lot of opportunity and stuff changes really fast. So it's super exciting. And as you say, like experience from multiple different areas is really important. And I often say to people when I'm doing the kind of elevator pitch, when people I have an intro call with people and like, who are hype then, and I often say, we're a bunch of marketers, but we weren't all born in crypto because crypto's not even been around that long. So everybody's got a background from somewhere that has some kind of interesting in that provides some kind of interesting insight to what we do, but and predominantly we're all marketers, but like having a breadth of experience from lifestyle or corporate or software or startups. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, everybody's got a unique take, and I think that all comes together to put a really interesting spin on some of the work we're enabled to do.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think a lot of crypto, especially in terms of marketing, is based on personalities. And people like
Yeah.
individually, even like people who don't have any experience prior, like any work experience, they can bring a lot to the table sometimes, just simply on like the things that they observe, the environment they grew up in, and so on. So it's like a blend of everything. Um,
Yeah.
Coming back to our original discussion, because we had a call with you, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. And honestly, I think you answered to so many of my questions about the TGEs. And I just realized that we're in the launch era once again, because I don't know if it's just me and like my environment, but everyone is talking about different TGEs. So many teams are reaching out who want to launch their token. And basically, nobody knows how it should be done. There are some there are some teams that seem like they know what they're doing, but I think it's also like a lot is based on intuition. And there are lots of questions which are kind of the same, right? Especially with the current like Web3 marketers uprising on Twitter. Marketers are complaining that founders want to launch yesterday. Founders don't have enough time, not enough resources. At the end, the result is like not satisfactory for anyone. So
Yeah.
seeing that you have a lot of experience in this, it would be interesting to have your take on like a lot of questions. We have some questions from people who dropped them in comments before, and I hope we'll have some in the chat. But first of all, where do you start? Like, let's say the client comes to you. What do you like? What is your thought process? What do you ask? How do you map out the actions?
Well, I mean, I guess first of all, there's a certain amount of um, due diligence that has to go into play. It's like, so yeah, thinking the basics. If somebody comes to us and they say, we want to do TGE, we want your help. First question is, when is the TGE going to be? So And then obviously there's a bunch of, I guess, variables that come into play that support any kind of answer for that. But if we're going to TGE next month, the reality is the impact of us, of the likelihood that we can have an impact on that TGE is going to be pretty slim, but as an agency, because we might be able to come on board, provide some cool assets in the time that we have available to like maybe a teaser, launch movie, whatever it is. Maybe we can get some distribution on a short timeline from some KOLs or other communities partners, but really that is no time at all to be able to have an impact on a TGE. But I guess the next question is always, if we're doing TGE in 5 weeks, how are you going about TGE? Who are your launch partners? Like, do you already have a centralized exchange organized? Are you doing some kind of decentralized launch? Are you planning on using a launch pad? Like, what is the mechanism that you're launching with? Did you have market makers organized? Do you have who are like, is there other people providing liquidity? So what mechanisms have you got to enable this launch to happen? And often the answer is, oh, we're just figuring that out. And that is an immediate red flag, because at
Mhm.
that if they have not sorted out these people, often, there are exchanges that are backed up who don't have a listing date for the next 3 months. So if you're just coming to this, or you haven't at least had some initial conversations, you're you're putting yourself in a really tight spot. And honestly, I would have a reality check and be like, right, okay, first of all, we need to secure our listing, and then we can go about all the other things that have to happen in terms of marketing, in terms of product, in terms of anything involving all the stakeholders to make sure that we actually have that successful launch.
I have
Um,
a
I
question for
think,
you here. Just one
okay,
side
yeah, go
question,
ahead.
because I think, yeah, it's really important to figure out the details. And as you mentioned, a lot of teams are thinking that you need to start marketing first and then you will figure out the details. But I think it's
Yeah.
kind of tricky, right? What comes first? Because a lot of exchanges want to see vanity metrics. They want to see like large
Yes.
community numbers, a lot of engagement, and some of the top exchanges are like having crazy listing requirements. So in this case, it kind of mm, founders fall into kind of like a trap, because they on one side they need to boost their marketing in order to secure the listing date. On the other side, we as marketers want the listing date from them in order to map out the TGE plan. What do you
Yeah.
advise in these situations?
So, I mean, so to get a good offer, you obviously have to have traction. I think it's good to have as a North Star. You want to be in a situation where your product has had so much traction that the exchanges all offer to list you for free. That's where you want to be. So you're not having to give away a huge amount of your token supply, or engage in some crazy amount of money offer to be able to list your token. And the only way to do that is to have a product with exponential growth, or have a really, really engaged, enormous community that are super hyped about the launch. And so I guess when you're thinking about, in terms of like chicken and the egg, it's like what has to come first. It's like, really, you have to look backwards. So if I want to do a TGE and I need to get a listing, I'd say at minimum, really, you want to give yourself 2 months beforehand. So then you have to be honest with yourself about the stage your community metrics are. Where are these vanity metrics that often listing partners will ask you for? Some will, some won't, some will be vague. But let's say it's 100K is the magic mark in terms of socials, and then let's say, I don't know, 2% engagement, which is honestly pretty high. Um, and then similar thing in on the community channels in Telegram and Discord. Um, and let's say you're at 20K organic followers right now, which is a really good place to be. If you're at 20K organic followers and you've got engagement from real people, that's great. But in the context of doing token launches, it's nothing. And so you then need to think, all right, how much if I need to TGE in the next 6 months, and I've got to get at least 2 months before I have to get my exchange listing finalized, I've got to build, and I want to build organic traction, and I've got to get to 100K. I need to 5x my community, like a 20K per month. 20, sorry, it's more than that, isn't it? It's like, yeah, let's say over a course of 4 months, let's say it's 20K, 25K. But if to get that kind of organic traction, you have to be in the same basket as like the hottest, fastest growing projects ever in crypto, which is just not everybody. So you have to employ a bunch of gray hat tactics, which are, there's a lot of white label solutions out there. I'm not going to like name any right now, but that you can use to help drive the numbers, pump the numbers, and it will fill your community and your socials with absolute garbage. But it's ultimately it's a necessity from a perception standpoint for getting to these listings. So, and I mean, to do that, you've got to put the campaigns together. If you're going to do it on white level platforms, very straightforward and easy. If you're going to use a shilling service, very straightforward and easy. If you're going to try to put together any kind of campaign, you need, I'd say, at least a month to put together the campaign, and then you've got to actually run it. So you've maybe got, I mean, in the whole context of those 6 months, you've got like 1 month to build, and then let's say 2 months to execute. Then you've got to get your exchange listing nailed in, and then you've got another 2 months of ramp up all the way towards TGE. Um, so that's 6 months. Most people start thinking about this, and like right now, everybody's trying to get it all done in Q1.
Two
So
weeks.
it's yeah, yeah. So so it's a stress for everybody. And the other thing is that, like, because everybody is trying to time the market, like right now, like the market has had, Bitcoin is still floating around 100K. It's still ranging right now. But and the rest of the alt market has dumped considerably, and with the exception of a few projects. Um, and And I mean, but what that means is that everybody is like now panicking about like what to do with their resources. Do I delay launch? But I think the reality is like right now, we have had there has been a massive sell-off, but this is an opportunity to be doubling down and giving yourself some breathing room to improve your marketing, to be actually thinking about it and planning a sensible TGE. A lot of people don't want to do it in the summer. I think this is almost like superstition, to be honest, but I think there is
I
an
don't know
argument for
who started that because a lot of people are saying that we're going to top in June. That's why nobody wants to launch closer to summer. I don't know where it started, but it's just like, yeah, it's like a superstition that we have to launch now at all costs.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it as well is because investors, let's say VCs, they want to get their tokens before the bull market's over. So, there's a lot of people pushing for, and if you've got VC pressure, there's people who are pushing for projects to get do the TGE, get it out the door. They will have had, you know, they'll have maybe they've got certain requirements or clauses in the contract that mean that it has to happen within a certain time frame to get more funding. Who knows? But a lot of people, I think, definitely have the expectation that perhaps by the end of this year, there will be we'll be back in a bear market. So people want to get as much value they can from the projects. And I mean, and honestly, that's their job. Like as VCs, I would be thinking the same thing. But for sustainable growth for a project, it's not the best, angle. It doesn't help, really help the projects in any way. So I think taking the time to do something properly for sustainability and thinking about how, the other thing is like how does my token relate to my product. I've seen numerous posts recently talking about the every project has two products. It's a token and the real product. It's how does your token actually relate to your main product? Because if it doesn't, if it's just governance, if it's just staking, it means absolutely nothing. It means nothing to anybody. So like why? And and the like nobody in the retail market is doing governance. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I don't think I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
I maybe done governance one time. Nobody cares about governance.
I've done
And
it
staking it,
twice for an
yeah.
airdrop. That's
Yeah,
it. That was a
that's it.
requirement for the airdrop.
If you're going to incentivize it, yeah, like I mean, it can make sense. But then staking as
Mhm.
well, like I mean, I think there's like we're coming around. Like there are smarter people all thinking about this better as an industry, but like staking as well. It's like, why does anybody care if the token is Does providing more emissions to something that has zero value actually do for anything? I mean, I think it's a necessary, it can be a necessary mechanism for issuance, but I think
Mhm.
what needs to happen is the token has to be connected to the product in some way. And I guess the more intelligent that you can be about this, if there is supply and demand, there's a growth story for the token, and having a growth
Mhm.
story for the token on the demand side is important for an earning opportunity. If you want people to talk about your token and buy into your project, you need to give people ammunition to talk about it positively. And so if you think about it, if you're going to a KOL network and you want them to talk about your token, what is the positive story behind the token? If it's just a
Mhm.
token for the sake of a token with a bunch of huge VCs involved, it's probably not got a very good story behind it. So it's all to do with how the utility for the token is placed within the actual product. And unfortunately, most projects, or a lot of projects, are all their marketing, the whole timeline is run on concept. It's not run on product. Um,
Yeah. Which is, I think it's another sign of the bull market when founders are asking, are you marketing the product or are you marketing the token? And I had this conversation with multiple teams when I was saying that you cannot market the token because the token
yeah,
is not, like, first of all, it's kind of borderline illegal, right? Especially if
yeah,
you're based in the US. There are so
yeah,
many gray areas. Like, you really don't want to market the token because you can get yourself into trouble. And secondly, if your token is not ingrained into, not show the clear growth trajectory, like, it's way easier to, like, basically you need to have really good tokenomics, and you need to have a lot of utility for the token to show that if your product is growing, here's the roadmap, this is what we're going to do to scale the protocol itself, and this is how the token is going to be affected through the growth of the protocol.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Really do think that's it. And I think the better thing to do, like most of the time, I mean, the reality of a lot of projects in the space is that they they need to run a lot of tech testing. They need to do DevNet, testnet, multiple iterations to get to a point
Hmm.
where they actually have a product to be able to talk about. Like, and maybe it's that even the token is related to the product, but it doesn't get to that point until launch. And with a lot of these networks, like L1s, L2s, it goes on for years. Like, we look at, the Berachain launch that just happened. We look at Monad, who's kind of, I think they're about to do another testnet or a testnet, the testnet. I don't even know. But the community building's gone on for years. But like, what is really happening with that community building? Like, what is the purpose? Like, we've got like a bunch of developers who are building the tech behind the scenes, and the rest of the community who are coming into it, they're there because they feel like there's going to be a honeypot at the end of the rainbow, and so they buy in, and they're there for and they hang around for the culture. In the meantime, we've got the entertainment factor in the meantime. But I think a much better way of doing this is to have a product out of the gate. And a lot of these kind of people with initial products, they expand and they do more later. But if you look at some of the best products, I mean, everybody talks about it, and we probably don't need to talk about it again. But you look at Hyperliquid; they've had a great product running for nearly a year. I think more than a year. In fact, I think it's exactly a year. Um, Before they did the TGE, and there was a few different activations, a few interesting marketing initiatives, but ultimately not a whole lot. Their brand isn't particularly exciting. Their creative isn't out of this world. They didn't do a huge amount of community building. What they did do was they put out a great product that they consistently made better. It was best in class, and it saw exponential growth. And if I'm in the real world, if I'm going to invest in anything, I'm going to be thinking, what is the product story? Is this a great product? And ultimately, that's the easiest decision when you're approaching any project. Is there an actual unique product that is best in class? And I think for so many of these networks out there, they're just another network. Like, what is the
So,
unique the selling point? What is the value proposition for this L1, this L2? Does it really make a difference, or is it just wrapped in a different bunch of creative color scheme brand, which does have an impact? People people are emotional. They want to spend their time, with a group of people, with a brand that aligns with them. And I think that's
Hmm.
something that I think Chain have done incredibly well. Um, but I mean, fundamentally, I think you look at the best products in the space and the ones that have seen the most growth. Um, they're the ones that we should be looking at for TGE examples, because they, product is the main thing, I think, for supporting an excellent TGE,
Hmm.
because you've got an actual growth story that's just going to proliferate after launch. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
true. True, but I like that you mentioned the real world because I feel like, if we as Web3 marketers talk to Web2 marketers, they would think that we're crazy because in most cases we're
we are
selling air.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, like we are slightly unhinged, but still, like I feel like it's easier to sell air in crypto versus
Yeah.
selling the real product. I'm not exactly sure, like interested to hear your perspective on that. Like, why do you think teams are going alternative route, like from Web2 companies? Why are they launching communities first and then working on the product? Is it because they don't have enough runway to like work on the product and just then go public? Or is it just because it's crypto and like, people are agitated, community wants something straight away? And teams are
Mm.
not able to ship the product straight away, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's tech ultimately, and it's bleeding edge tech. Like, we don't have it figured out yet. We're missing a lot of infrastructure. So it's not a simple thing. And we also don't have like we don't have product market fit with so much of it. We've got niche community that loves a bunch of stuff. We don't have mass adoption. I mean, there are some really good examples of like consumer tech in the space and they're completely abstracted away. The kind of the tech side of things. But then this happens a lot, I think, as well. Like, there are some great examples of blockchain enabled consumer tech abstracted away, but then because of growth and investment ambitions, they go and get an investment, and then they have to launch a token and figure out how the token's going to make sense within the product. But for complicated bleeding edge tech, the industry that we're in, trying to figure it out, there's a pitch, there's a problem, we're going to solve this problem with this solution, it's going to fix this, it's going to bridge or allow liquidity to flow easily between chains, or whatever it is. um I think often that problem is in itself, like, it's only a problem because of the ridiculous setup and the way that we've kind of grown as an industry. I think often, like, the problems that we end up solving are just that we need to go way further back to actually fix the issue, as opposed to just trying to like put in little bridges and plasters over over bullet wounds. So I would say that probably Ethereum is probably in that kind of situation right now. But the so yeah, it's a kind of, I think, and also, so when we're building out these solutions as well, like, we don't exactly know what the answer is. There's a lot of testing that has to be done. So I would consider these projects who go to market, they're kind of concept driven, because they haven't actually figured out if they can do what they've said they're going to do. They've got like a deck, they've hypothesized, they've got a theory about it, and some people believe in them enough to go to invest a bunch of money, but then they have to make it work. And then it might take a year, might take 2 years, might only take 6 months, who knows. But in that time, they've just taken a bunch of money. They have to figure out how can we, draw attention to this, and often it's around building community. That's what they can do. And the other thing is they need developers a lot of the time. So it's how do we get more smart people into this to support the growth? There's a developer side, but I think, and I think I've posted about this before as well. Like, from day one, you should be thinking about, because of the nature of the industry we're in. I'm not sure. I wouldn't say this is necessarily valid in every industry, but if there is going to be a token at some point in the future, you need to get retail investors on your side, because the majority of the smart people who might be your audience, your product might be B2dev, it might be B2B, are still going to be less than 1% of your community. That's just the reality. So who's going to make up that extra 100K? It's going to be retail. who's going to be, or who are going to be your investors? It's in terms of not just these like massive unicorns with, billions of dollars to spend. It's going to be retail. So starting as soon as you go to market, I think it's very important to bring retail along for the ride, and you do yourself a huge favor for everything else, all the other business and product KPIs that you have on your roadmap are going to be supported by the fact that you've got an active, engaged community backed by some retail. Because when you're trying to onboard new developers, they see a hyped retail community. They're gonna be like, oh, there's potentially users here. When you're going to other projects for partnership, co-marketing discussions, they're going to be like, oh yeah, they've got a lot of distribution because they've got a hype retail community. Let's partner with them. So just the knock-on effect that it has, having this engaged community from early on, is incredibly important. If you spend 2 years building, you take a bunch of money, spend 2 years building, and don't know anything about building community, you run the risk of getting to the end of your runway, and then you want to go to market. One, the tech might have changed, the whole map might have shifted, and then you have nothing to show. But if you've built community over that time, you can easily make a pivot and do something else, and you've actually got something to show for that time when you've been building out in public and iterating on whatever it is and solving the problem along with the people who've come along for the ride. So I think it is a huge mistake to try and do things in stealth mode in this space, because nearly everything is an opportunity for growth. And one of the key growth things in this space is building a community so you can get to TGE, so you can get to listing and have all the support that you need to have that conversation, to get that offer, to really get the token out there.
So we should basically, as a team who's going towards the TGE, we should start by building the product, growing the ecosystem, growing the community at the same time, with like being lean on the side of marketing. And then at some point, like calculate 3 to 4 months before the TGE and drop like a marketing bomb. Is it fair to say that?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say we want to go lean. I mean, ultimately, everybody's got budget constraints. Everybody has
Yeah.
limited resources. No, none of us have the ideal teams that we want, but I think it is really important to be thinking about marketing early, building community early. How are you amplifying everything that you do, even if your roadmap to launch is going to be 12 months, 2 years, whatever it is. But because you want to get yourself to a point where you haven't capitalized on all the ammunition that you have to support your growth. So that, this can be like brand announcement campaign, DevNet, multiple test nets, partnership announcements, integrations, all the stuff that you see, which most projects do, but some don't. And some do it in a really, color by numbers way, with no creative thought behind it. And so, but involving even a lean marketing team early to support with these things is to do things in a little bit outside the box will get attention. As long as you've got a good idea, and ultimately, again, there's loads of there's loads of the same reskin projects out there. But if you've got a good product and actually a good idea, you do some creative marketing, you have consistency with your brand identity, you do some fun things to attract retail, then I think you can launch a project and go to TGE potentially within 6 months. But I would say that would be,
From the very
I'd still say
start.
that I think potentially, yeah, if you've got a good
Mhm.
product. But like if you have to build out in public, which is often the case, then much longer. Like, I mean, I would double that at least.
Yeah, because it's distracting for the team, right? So you have to like factor in that you're going to be public, you're going to do AMAs, you're going to probably travel to conferences, and it's just like you cannot dedicate 100% of your time to building.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why you need a marketing team. But you have to be prepared to, like, if you can't be bothered to talk about your journey, your product, the problem you're trying to solve, like you did in those investor meetings, then who's going to
Mhm.
do it for you? I mean,
Yeah.
we have some technical content writers that we work with, but I nearly always recommend that we don't use them, like because
Really?
it's because it's always going to be better
Mhm.
coming from the founding team. Spend some time.
Yeah.
Like the smart people in the founding team are the best ones to be talking about this, sharing it, and that's going
Mhm.
to be more authentic, more genuine. They're going to feel more comfortable about it. So it's not to say, I don't want to say that we haven't got great services, but it's just
Mhm.
it's logical. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
It
like
makes sense.
be
Yeah, because I asked you about that, right? I was asking like whether just as an option, because we were writing docs for one of the teams I'm working with, and as an option to save time, I asked you whether you can help with technical writers to write this out. Um, you did not advise against that, but you were saying that it's better to write this in the team. And I think it was a brilliant advice because, to be honest, like throughout this process, we uncovered so many things that were not working. And, like on the fundamental level, some things in the product that had to be sunsetted, or like some shifts that were made and things like that, simply by like getting on multiple calls and going through docs and like figuring out the details. So I guess, yeah, it does make, I think it's a lot for founders because they need to essentially like build a product, they need to communicate with the team internally, they need to communicate on their journey externally. And it's stressful and it's like a lot on their shoulders. But at the same
Yeah,
time, there is kind of no way out, right? Because otherwise, if they don't do that, if they don't communicate their vision and what's happening, nobody's going to understand like where to go because they set the roadmap.
yeah. I think it's one of the hardest jobs as a marketer is getting, let's say, more technical led founders of which most of them are to really value the marketing side of things. It's like getting them involved, to be vocal, to really value the time spent put in to write content, to be present on different content media streams. It's often better than a lot of the other work that you'll do, which could end up just being busy work. If you've got your founders out there being vocal, talking passionately about the project, being the real evangelists, then yeah, there's nothing more valuable than that. And we
Mhm.
get I'm sure you do as well. It's like, can you go and get us a ghostwriter? Can you help us get us someone to help with founder branding?
Mhm.
Yeah, but it's like,
What
but
do you think
people,
about that?
yeah, I mean,
Like I had
it's,
a chat with Dean last week, and we were discussing exactly that because I was talking to him again, like for some teams that reached out and they were asking about founder-led marketing.
yeah,
Um, but basically, I figured that there are two camps. There is one camp of founders that are thinking that they have to write their content, and nobody ever will be able to write as good as them. There's a
hmm
second camp that want to be out there and want they kind of like they don't want to be public, but they know that they have to be public. So that's
hmm
why they want to hire a ghostwriter. And then there are people
yeah,
like Mert who are saying that if you cannot lead marketing as a founder, you shouldn't launch a product. What do
yeah.
you think about that?
Yeah, I think the days are kind of anonymity, of hanging in the back, are kind of fading in crypto. It's been a big part of it, and still we have PFPs as our profile pictures, and a suite of the top tier NFTs or a badge of honor. And we don't see as many faces as you might expect. But I think that's slowly sort of really fading away in terms of personality. And I think, I mean, I just not even what I think. It's we've seen the results of like the founders who are willing to fight the good fight, be out in front, to kind of take charge of the future of their project, are the ones who are going to succeed. Um, I mean, I'm just going to play devil's advocate there. Um, Going back to Hyperliquid, product. Not a whole lot of like founders out in front on that. So I'm not. So there is an argument, yeah, I guess, that it's not completely necessary. But I think in terms in terms of a tool to use, like, why would you not be doing it? Like, I mean, the only reason, I
Mhm.
guess, the answer for this is like, if there's nobody else to build the tech, then then maybe your time should be better spent elsewhere. And I think there are some talented writers out there that can potentially structure content in a better way. If you're really just a polymath and you end up writing out equations when you're trying to write a paragraph, then yeah, probably you need some writing support. I think for us, like founder branding is more commonly, it's about coaching, it's about providing structure, it's about enabling founders to be able to get some consistency going and growing their voice and their presence on the key channel, which is X. And then there's some again some coaching support. It kind of plays into it's under our sort of PR team as well. So it's a lot about crafting the story and a bunch of other media on top of that. But we do offer ghostwriting as a service, but it's premium. We don't it's not something we really want to do, but we will do it for, I guess, the right team. But we won't do it unless there is a real gel between the person, the client, and our team, like our founder team led by Sasha. Because it's something that you have to get really close to be able to do. And I think, if somebody is just like throwaway, like says to their head of marketing or their chief of staff, go and get me a ghostwriter, and they don't even have time to get on a call to talk about it, talk about the reasons why, big red flag, probably something we don't want to be involved with. You can't just outsource everything or throw money at everything. You can some of the time, but I don't think you can for this. People will know, people, they're not stupid. And I think you've got to I think the best way to kind of think about this is systematization. Treat it as an experiment. I think often that's the way to get through to people who are, let's say, who are more mathematically and scientifically oriented, is to let's treat it like a proper project, as opposed to just
Hmm.
oh, we're thinking about writing some subjective content. No, 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 no. Like let's provide some structure. Let's make it a game. Let's make it scientific, and then we can, and then it's something that we can actually measure results on and look at the
Hmm.
experience over time. By the way,
My
being from 40,
personal, yeah.
40 IQ, 40 IQ is great. So yeah, you can do much worse than going to 40 IQ for any founder branding needs.
That's a little show. A plug in there. But I really like that you mentioned about the structure, because my personal take on Web3 marketing is that it's a lot about discipline, especially around launches and especially around TGEs, because it's basically, if you don't have the plan and if people in the team are not following the plan, it's just gonna all fall like dominoes.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. Like I see a lot of the time as well, people are like, how do you manage all the work streams? I think so. I think there's a few different sides to this. I think sometimes projects can often end up doing too much, and they lack a bit of focus. Like if you're putting out 3 or 4 tweets a day and you're shouting about a bunch of different stuff, and it's not really got any kind of leading thread through all of it, it can feel very just like a wall of shit. So I think it is good to be prolific in the content output, but with much more thought process around the reasons why. I think we often get asked questions about social growth, like how do we approach this? What can our service team do? And often the answer is we have a social media team. They're all working on multiple accounts. We can provide you a social media manager and a light service, which might be 1 tweet a day, um, monitoring channels, doing a certain amount of social listening for keywords and accounts, making sure we're in the right conversations. But a lot of the real, I guess, deep engagement stuff is going to have to come from your side, because we just don't have time for it with one social media manager who's working on 2 or 3 other accounts. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
If you want to,
Hmm.
if you want to explore a full social media effort for a big project, or you're really serious about ramping up your account, you need someone. Really, you need a team of people, and really you do need a team of people, or you have someone who's full time, only thinking about this nonstop.
Hmm.
Because I think you've got a bunch of different content pillars, buckets, whatever you want to call them, to think about on product, entertainment, narrative, ecosystem, all this stuff that you need to map out.
Hmm.
and you need to allocate time for each of those. You need to have content ideas, structures outlined. Then you need to do the proactive stuff around, let's say you want to run some like weekly or bi-weekly campaigns with a specific hypothesis and in mind, and it which might be around engaging dissent with your main competitors. It might be about engaging with the key actors within a particular ecosystem. But the level of like reply guy stuff that can be effective, that's not just posts coming out of the main account, is it can be hugely impactful. So you need to ring fence off time, like 2 hours a day for doing this, or maybe it's on like Mondays and Wednesdays, or like on maybe, and if you've got a team of people, you've got like, let's say you've got one content person thinking about technical content, which has to go out, like project technical announcements, because you're addressing developers. You've got someone who's just thinking about memes, actually producing visuals, the entertainment factor, culture, visual identity. You've got somebody who's focused on communication with peers and partner announcements, but like in a more creative, thoughtful way. You've got somebody who's doing this outbound tactical campaign stuff, like the reply guy stuff we're just talking about. And you need to assign responsibility to all of this and then have it all managed in one place. And if you think about it, doing that as one person is insane. Like, so, and I've heard like stories about, I've spoken with a few projects who've got, let's say, just an intern account with multiple people running it. So if you're a social media manager on a project right now and you're drowning and you feel like you have too much to do, don't worry, you're not alone. There are some projects out there who've got multiple, like more, like let's say 5, 6 people working on the same social media account, strategy, content. So it's a tough ask because it is so important in this space. And I think I guess the point I'm trying to get to is, often we don't have, as marketers, especially if you haven't been able to pitch and get the number of resources that you want. Being able to do all the stuff that you want to do is just going to be impossible. So you have to think about what is going to be the most high impact for the pressure and the objectives that my my senior team will ask me to get to. The C-suite have said like this needs to happen in this time frame. So a bunch of like
Hmm.
busy stuff that you can think, all right, this would help if I could do this, and like mapping it all out, but then thinking, okay, what is going to be the most high impact, and then being really
Hmm.
honest about it. Because I think if we all had like a week to map out a complete strategy, like with all the things we'd like to do, it's like, okay, right now I've got to cut half of it because I just don't have the resources. I don't have the team available to do it.
Yeah, either resources or time, because a lot of
Yeah,
things take time. And what I figured, a lot of things are like you cannot start everything simultaneously. You need to finish one thing, then you can start this campaign, then like this campaign is going to lead you to something else, and so on.
yeah,
And I also like to account in terms of time for any like unforeseen circumstances, because something always pops up. It's at least like
yeah,
1 or 2 weeks delay.
yeah. I think I can't actually remember a, I can't remember a TGE that wasn't delayed in some way. I mean,
Yeah, never happened.
no, I mean, actually, that's a lie. Like, I mean, no, it does. I mean, tech gets delayed, but I think like TGEs
Hmm.
do tend to run on time unless there is some kind of important like market buy-in, um, because you've got your date fixed. Like, but I mean, there is often there's negotiation. Like, I think like we've had a few projects who've launched, who've done TGE at some honestly inadvisable times, just because they were like, we don't have another window to be able to do this. There is no other option. And it's kind of sad sometimes. And like and if you're stuck with the constraints that you've been given and you have to make the most of it. And
Hmm.
there'll be a bunch of financial things going on as well, and pressure on again, like pressure on the founders. It's like, oh, like if we push the TG back to this time, oh, it's going to be this much more of our token supply, or it's going to cost this much more money. It's like, or we're going to have to give or involve I don't know, this extra partner. There's a bunch of different things that you have
Hmm.
to consider that often marketers aren't privy to. If we had the full picture, I'm sure we'd be a bit more understanding. If I'm being completely honest. Um,
Tiny bit.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I guess communication is like key thing. It's like, let us in, let us tell us. tell us what we really need to understand here. Tell us why this is happening, like what's going on. And yeah,
Yeah,
but like
it's never just about marketing, right? It's everything. Like marketing
yeah,
just kind of amplifies everything that's happening on the project side.
yeah, you're totally
But what
right.
about the money? Like you touched upon the topic of money. So how much does it cost to TG? Like what's the minimum you advise to go with?
The minimum, like, I mean, I don't have all the figures um like the costs for being on exchanges. I can't honestly, I would be remiss if I gave them out, but I think some of the figures that I know, but yeah, for doing any kind of centralized exchange listing, I would say on the bottom end, you're probably looking at a minimum of somewhere between 250 to 500K. Um,
Hmm.
that's just on like getting the listing. That's nothing on marketing. I think if you're thinking
Yeah.
like any kind of sensible TGE, like with a good marketing budget, like let's say we're doing 6 months, right? I think
Hmm.
you want to be thinking, unless you've got a team to, like, ultimately the goal should always be get a really quality team in-house.
Hmm.
Get a really good designer, get a motion designer, get a campaign executor, get like which is probably going to be head of marketing. Get a really good
Hmm.
social media manager. Get the key community people. Get a head of community. Get a head of DevRel if devs are important. Get really solid mods or bring them up through the community. Um, get a really good BD person. So I mean, I guess that's like 5 or 6 people on the marketing front. And I think with a team like that,
Hmm.
um, you're probably going to be able to do a great TGE. Pay them well, like pay them what you might imagine paying an agency. So, you should. I think I would say you need to be thinking like in terms of monthly salary, like at least like I would say 7K per month, and plus token incentives
Yeah.
on top. That's going to vary wildly, but like pay these people properly and factor it into your budget, and then on top of that, you want to be thinking about like external paid budget. Like, have you got a
Hmm.
consumer product? Is it relevant for people outside of crypto, or is there a potential? Is it a at some kind of intersection? Is it Web 2.5? Like, is mass market marketing relevant for you? Should I be thinking about short form video on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube Shorts? Should I be doing
Hmm.
a paid advertising campaign? Could that even make sense? As crypto becomes more prevalent in the market with Trump, like the regulations being more relaxed in the states, like are there opportunities that we haven't been thinking about up till now that somebody's going to start taking advantage of? Do I want to be the first person to do that? Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, having some kind of external amplification budget. I mean, the most common thing to think about is giving out tokens to KOLs for content, but cash is going to secure your content much better than it is through tokens, which is funny
Yeah.
money. But a lot of the time, so
Yeah. A
giving
lot of
yourself,
KOLs stopped accepting tokens, right? Because they got
yeah,
really burned, especially throughout the bear market. So I know a
yeah,
lot of
I think,
people who are accepting just cash.
yeah, and there's platforms like I think there's nearly every project I've spoken to in the last 3 months has been talking about trying to get on Legion or Echo for some kind of public sale, because they can get exposure to a lot of the KOLs, angels, like right people, and get tokens into the hands of people who they know have good networks. They actually want on their kind of cap table, want to be supporters. It's an easier way to do it than trying to do these over the counter KOL deals with
Yeah.
or through going through KOL agencies, a lot of whom are very, very shady as well. So I'd say I think everyone will give you a different answer on the right people to work with on KOLs. I think it's such like kind of behind the scenes knowledge. I don't think
Hmm.
anyone's got a really good answer on this. Um, so there's a few that we work with, I've worked with and have done great work, but I think a lot of the people who like, every conference I'll, ask this question and talk to different people, and I'll get different names every time from everybody. And
Yeah. The same.
there'll be wild, wild numbers thrown out. Like, Like, oh yeah, but this person will only work with you if you've got 5 million to spend. I'm like, who the fuck is spending that?
Five
Like,
million on KOLs.
yeah, really, really crazy numbers thrown around. So like, we'll only work with
Yeah.
budgets over a certain size. So it's like, I think it's still a super, super shady way to get distribution. So I think platforms like Legion Echo being able to do a sensible public sale,
Hmm.
and then on top of that, also involving the community. So I think we're coming up to time. Wait, are we at time or
Yeah.
we've got another 30 minutes?
Do
Yeah,
you have 5 more minutes?
I've got to jump to another call, but I'm sorry, but
Okay. Yeah.
I'm gonna leave.
Hmm.
I'm gonna leave with this with this thought.
Yeah.
The biggest, which we all know, is that the earning opportunity that a token provides for the community is your strongest marketing. So launching at a low valuation, giving the community some kind of stake in the future, but giving them an easy way to get involved, and then them seeing their bags go to the moon is the best marketing you're ever going to get. And so, and I think the best way, getting them on board, building community, like you've got identity, you've got the emotional connection, you've got the earning opportunity, and then you've got a product. If you can get people in with the carrot, which is the incentives, the earning opportunity, and a bit of creative culture, some fun brand work, and get them into
Hmm.
the puzzle, even if you haven't got a product yet. When your product launches, or if you have got a product, you'll get them in there. They see that as a great product and be like, oh, I'm just going to hang around anyway, and then they'll hold your token. So have a good product when you launch, and make sure there is an offer after TGE for people to engage with the product, so that whether that's like you're at layer one and you've got actually ecosystem projects who are essentially your products for users. Make sure there's a good campaign to get liquidity, get your token into these different products, or that shows the utility for your token within these products. And then then you're going to be in a much better position after your TGE. I wish we had more time. But
Yeah, I feel like we can chat for 5 more hours. There are going to be still questions. But
yeah.
thank you so much for your time, because I think it's an amazing closing thought. It's like, this funny phrase that everyone uses and nobody actually understands what it means. Like, you need to provide value. So
Yeah,
essentially, you need to provide value to your community, and that's how you sell your TG, your products, and everything else.
yeah, that's entirely it. So yeah,
Yeah.
how are you going to continue to provide value after the speculation is gone?
Yeah.
Product. It's product.
Yeah.
Um,
Awesome.
okay, Ksenia, let's do this again.
Yeah, let's do this again sometime. I'd love to. Thank you so much for joining. See you
Thanks
soon.
anybody listening. Thanks for listening, and yeah, you know where to find me.
Bye, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Thanks, Ksenia. Bye bye.
Mhm.